The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. I am your host, Dr. Owen Campbell. I am the owner of Simplify Motion Physical Therapy in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me, as always, is Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution Physical Therapy in Connecticut and Long Island. Brian, we are talking about your wheelhouse today.
My favorite.
I'm going to just be setting this stuff. I'm going to be pitching up softballs for you. So today we're going to be, I'm just going to see the smile come across Brian's face because today we are talking about sales.
Yep.
And as any physical therapist who has gone through PT school knows, we never get taught anything about this. And if you've practiced long enough, you realize some of the other professions are pretty good at this. You ever go to the dentist, they are always upcharging you on stuff. You go to chiropractors, basically anybody who hasn't had to rely on insurance for their existence for the past 40 years, right? Dentistry and chiropractor are two of those. They know how to sell, right? And if they don't, they go away very quickly. So this is going to be a podcast with a lot of tips about how to take someone who isn't trained in that or wasn't born in the sort of sales mindset, how to get them more comfortable with the conversation of, hey, do you take my insurance? How much is this going to cost? All those different questions that any owner of either a fully cash-based clinic, they know this every single day, but even insurance-based clinics who are trying to diversify into cash really take some of the hit off of those reimbursement rate losses. A lot of these conversations are new conversations for either experienced owners or brand new owners, and they're even kind of challenging for people who've been doing it for years, right? So I think it'll be really good to kind of take Brian's knowledge and his background of building up a cash-based and then a cash/insurance-based clinic over 8 years, and then kind of pick your brain a little bit because, man, I want to make some more money.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, there are 3 things, and the reason no one knows is there are 3 things that I truly believe that has made me able to stand out as a physical therapist and help grow a company the way we did, from like the back of a car into now multiple clinics, right? And the 3 major skills are: 1, obviously being a really good physical therapist; 2 is being really good at advertising. And I don't just mean on Facebook, I mean in content creation and referral partners that we've talked about. And we've kind of beat advertising. I don't want to say we beat advertising to death because you can never, but in terms of that, with like advertising. And the 3rd is selling. You got to close it, right? So like those 3 things, having the skill, and basically the skill set of physical therapy is kind of the fulfillment of that. So if you can be really good at sales, marketing, and a really decent physical therapist, you can grow a business, I don't want to say relatively quickly, but you can build a really good one depending on how good you are and at these processes. So I'm excited about this.
And I think that's an important distinction where you just said advertising and then another category is sales. A lot of times
Yes.
PTs will get that mixed up where they say, look, I got great ads. Look at me, doing pull-ups in my CrossFit gym. Like, look how awesome this is. I should be having people rolling in, right? And they drop the ball on the sales conversation. The actual phone call that comes in and says, okay, I want to be like you. I want to do pull-ups. My shoulder hurts. Give me the details. Do you take my insurance? How much is it going to cost? Like all the things that people who are about to spend a lot of time and money with you will rightfully ask, right? So I think that's important. And the sales is what we're going to talk about, how to take that marketing and make it worth your time.
Yep.
So then I guess, I know selfishly, I almost suggested this because I want tips, man. Talk to the guy who just came out of insurance world. I think we were 99% insurance. Like we had like 1% cash pay my entire 14 years or 13 years working in big box PT. Teach me how to tell somebody, forget your insurance, brother. Don't even do that. Those premiums, don't worry about it. So how do I do that?
There's a really interesting, and again, we've talked about this in a previous podcast. My favorite book that I've ever read, and it all revolves around like the Wolf of Wall Street, the straight line method, right? Like read anything about like those guys, right? Like that is the best way to describe it, because as much as people like don't like sales, I think the biggest thing is, if you think about anything Jordan Belfort, right? He was an incredible salesman. And so the whole idea behind the straight line method that happens in phone conversations or discovery calls or any stuff is, the whole point is of a straight line. And for those of you listening but can't see me, I have my two fingers up and I'm literally drawing a straight line between them. Is people will try and move you off that line. It happened to me yesterday. Someone was trying to move me into a different direction, and I was like, and then I just brought her back. I was like, let's just go back into this scenario of like going back. And so the straight line is where we started from the sale and you handing us money. It's that simple. So you just don't want them to go off into something different. Realize that most people, that if you're going into that sales conversation and getting in deep, if they are like, oh, let me think about it, let me do this, let me do that, if you don't close them right there, you have a very significant chance. Your significant chance of actually selling them has drastically declined. So, the best chance you have is with that person right there in front of you. So we're going to talk about discovery calls and discovery visits, because that's what a discovery visit is. It's just a better way to talk to them about their problems, and it's kind of like a free test and talk to you. It's another way to slow the process down a little bit. What I would do is, so say Owen calls me, right? And he says, well, do you take my insurance? The first thing I do is I sidestep that question. I do not lean in and be like, no. Terrible way to do it. Because if I say no, the answer is, now they've already heard no. It's amazing how, if you ever read any books on psychology, people hear no and now they automatically say no. So what you do is you sidestep that. The best way to describe it is that discovery call is, you sidestep the conversation and you say, tell me about what's going on. It's number one, the way that I always look at sales is, and the reason I love sales so much is because I watch so many people be so uncomfortable about the word sales, but the reality is it's just a puzzle. It's no different than why we got into physical therapy school in the first place. I'm just trying to get to like, why the answer to this puzzle is, you should work with me because I can help you and I can fix your problem better than anybody else. And that's why you should come work with me. And so at the end of the day, you want to leave with that conversation. I either got to work with the guy that I know will fix my problem, or I got to go through my insurance. So go ahead.
And that reminds me of a quote that I heard when I was looking through this, is that the most dedicated, the best salespeople in any organization are the ones that believe wholeheartedly in the fact that they are the best option for that person. And I can tell you what, that's the new clinic owner, because they just picked up stakes, put them somewhere else. They started their whole thing based on the fact that they are better than where they were previously, and they could make more money doing what they do better than anyone else they came in contact with. So I think that mentality is something that is really important, and has helped me to make sure that I get it out of the whole, like, oh, it's sales. I might be taking their money that they could be spending on their children's lollipops at swim class. And I look at it and say, no, like, I am preventing this person from going to a mill, getting terrible results, and then never playing golf, pickleball, basketball, whatever again.
And one thing I would say about that, if you read anything that Jordan Belfort talks about, is you don't try and sell somebody who doesn't want to be sold. So this call shouldn't take 4 hours. It should be quick, right? So basically, again, to go back to the script, say you're saying, hey, do you take my insurance? Right? Say, wait, like, sorry, I missed your name. My name's Brian. Tell me a little about what's going on. That's it. And the person will tell you about what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then here are the next sequences. The next sequence is, again, what have you tried so far? Because maybe they've tried physical therapy. You want to know that. So if I basically, the best way to talk about about the discovery call, you should not be doing the majority of the talking. You should be directing and commanding the conversation to where it needs to go. That's important to understand. You need to take control of the conversation. There's that straight line. Don't let the person take you somewhere where like you're talking about your grandkids and your kids or something crazy. And you can talk about it. It's not that you can't talk about it, but you got to bring them back to that line. So if me and Owen start talking about something, blah, 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 but like, hey, so tell me what you've tried so far for this back pain, right? Mm-hmm. And then if they say like, oh, I've tried this, I've tried injections, blah, 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 they're talking about surgery, I'm not really sure, and be like, well, has anything helped? Right? Has anything hurt you?
And then stop talking.
And stop talking. You just let them keep going. You just let them talk. And again, if any of you, I can talk forever. Owen knows this, but it's like my time where I'm totally silent because I'm just like listening to them just talk to me. And so it's like, as you go through that process, it's like, okay, like I'm just listening to them. And then I say like, all right, well, like, again, and then I ask them, have you ever tried physical therapy before? That's a very key question. So if you think about follow my sequencing, I'm saying, tell me about what's going on. So I'm finding out what's going on with them. And then again, the longer the conversation does go, the better you are off actually. So what you can say is you could be like, all right, tell me what's going on. What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And then have you ever tried physical therapy? And in theory, what you're looking for on the steps, if it's going to work out nicely, is the easier conversation is I have back pain. I've tried everything but physical therapy. Nothing's helped me, right? And I tried physical therapy way back in the past, and it really helped me. And a classic example of why I want to ask that question is, why did physical therapy help, right? And what were you doing in physical therapy? Because realize, especially for cash-based PTs, and honestly, even insurance-based PTs, because we take insurance, and some of these copays, man, are $65. So like, I'll give you a great example. Someone's came to me and she goes to me, she's like, listen, she's having some back pain, and she just had a couple kids. So she's got some, 2-inch gap between her in her abdominals, right? And so she's like, I'm having this back pain. How many sessions of physical therapy do you need? Well, guess how she first originally met us? She met us when she had better insurance and she had ACL reconstruction. Totally different rehab sequence. My ACL is going to be, my 30, 40, 50 visits maybe, right? Whereas like this is probably 6 to 10 visits. Not crazy, right? Maybe not, maybe even less than that. So the reality is, in her head, we're just normally tabulating in our brains what this is going to cost. So that's the next step. So you want to talk about physical therapy and be like, oh, this is going to be totally different. It'll be less visits, more visits. Don't big pitfall. Do not tell people, hey, there's like these visits that you're going to do, right? Like I don't want to be like, hey, it'll take me a big cash PT mistake. Oh, I'll fix you in less visits than the insurance guy. Bad mistake, because the problem is now you're promising something that's not good, and two, in essence, like you maybe the insurance guy on the other side is freaking dope. Maybe he's awesome, right? Like for all you know, and they're like, oh no, my guy's amazing. So you never want to like talk in that negative direction. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the next step of where the sequencing should go.
Okay, so I got basically start with, even if they go right into insurance, just say, oh, I'm sorry, what was your name again? Okay. It's kind of is you go back and tell me what's your problem. I think that problem solving mentality is what I took most from what you just said. And then making sure that you get an understanding like a clinician would of what they've done so far, what their experience has been like with it, how receptive they are. And then you can honestly, I mean, it's nice to be a clinician and know the ACL is going to be different than a diastasis recti, right?
Yes.
So having all those things together. So, okay, we've gotten they trust me, we're talking about them, all this. Now, is there anything you want to close that call with? You said, don't let them get off the phone, right? That's a big problem.
Yeah.
So they said, oh yeah, you hear me, you understand me, you're listening to me. Sounds like you're better than the rest of the people. Now what?
Yeah. So at that point, then it's then the line becomes here. Like, hey, remind me, you talked about your insurance. I wanted to answer that question. Tell me what insurance you have. Now, for those of you who are all completely out of network insurances, that's how you're going to play it. You're going to say, well, okay, just so you know, we're out of network with that insurance, but we do have an ability to help you, right? Like, again, this is good. This is the hard part, because say I'm Owen, where I like, for me, we do take a couple of insurances that are out of network, and then we have the way that we work with it. Same thing with Owen. Owen's going to have a different way of how he's going to do a flat rate. So I'm going to do it for Owen because, again, I think most people who are listening to this are going to be in the cash-based world. I'd say, listen, circling back to your insurance question, remind me what insurance you have. Okay, cool. So we're out of network without insurance. We do have cash visits. What we do is we can provide you a supervill that you can then get reimbursed. We have different programs so that we can help you. And I work with people like you all the time. I have somebody that I work with right now that has X, Y, or Z problem. We fixed it in about 6 visits. They're doing really well, and they're really happy with our treatment. So, I mean, again, you talked to me about the things you liked or didn't like about your treatment that you've gotten so far before. I know I can help you, and I'd love to help you. Now you pause. Remember the part of Wolf Wall Street, you pause and you wait. And so your sale, and then, by the way, I'm paraphrasing on this. You could play this in a couple different directions, but the reality is what you're basically starting out is, we're an out-of-network provider. We can provide you something that'll help you get reimbursed for out-of-network benefits on your insurance. And we do take, again, you can talk about the cash. You don't have to talk about the cash. The close really depends on how that first part of that conversation went. But again, if someone's saying to me, hey, I have back pain. Yes, I tried physical therapy in the past and it sucked. Yes, like you can kind of line up when it's going to start better. Again, one other thing, the more sales you do, the better you will get at it. So it's like, again, I find that like I have a script that I've written out for people, but in reality of it is like, you can read it verbatim, but I guess it's mainly going to be something along those lines. Then you wait. Then the key is now you're going to go into objection overcome. You can also, before you get to that, you can ask one other question. You can say, hey, what are some other obstacles that you have for physical therapy for us working together? Is it driving to physical therapy in the past? Is it financially you've had issues with PT in the past? Is it, and I throw the financial in there, but I don't use it first. So you can throw this in there. You can get caught with this question, but it will kind of preempt the finances. You can catch where the obstacle is going to be. So before you have the whole like we're at a network, blah blah, that conversation, you can say, what are some obstacles for you in physical therapy that you have or you see in the future? Is it your schedule? Is it getting to the clinic from a distance? Is it financial problems? Is it you have your kids that you're juggling? Like, what are some of the issues that you have? And so see how I kind of wove that in there?
So this is, I think you're getting into something that we're going to cover. I think because I had another question for you, and we talked about a little bit of pre-show, but it's about the sales conversation versus overcoming those objections, right? And I always found that like actually pitching myself isn't hard, but overcoming the objections kind of is.
So I mean, the big thing here is realizing that there's a difference in the beginning sales part of the conversation and different parts of the structure. So the first is the discovery side of it, right? And then the second, the next part is the pitch. So like it's a combination of a pitch where you're talking to them about what your services are. And the third part is the objection overcome. A lot of times you can do it two ways. You don't have to do this. You don't have to uncover what the objections are before you get there. I do find in certain scenarios it's easier, right? Because if someone's like, well, the finances are tight and blah, blah, I don't know what's going on, or someone had mentioned in their discovery, hey, I hate these these PT mills and stuff like that. I've had a bad experience with them. Well, now at least you have some places to leverage, right? And you can see those angles. I think when it comes to objection overcomes, then the next step is most people think, oh, well, like I really want to use my insurance and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, totally cool. I get that. My best line for objection overcome on that is, tell me this. What's your primary goal? Is your primary goal to work with me or with an insurance, use your insurance?
Yeah.
Then again, you pause. And the reality of that scenario is you just put them in a scenario where either I got to choose this guy or I got to go and use my insurance.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of it could be, and by the way, you could also slow this process down even more on that pitch. You could pitch them into what's called a discovery visit, which could be, hey, you know what? We're an internet provider, but if you want, we offer a 30-minute discovery visit where you can come in and we can talk a little bit more specifically about your case and how we can help you. And then I can tell you exactly what it's going to cost. And maybe you're objective overcoming, then you're doing that again. So you see where you can just, that's called what they call that in the Wolf of Wall Street. They call that basically, it's like cycling back. Basically, you're like he calls it looping. So essentially, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, like I'm going through the pitch, then objection overcome, back to the pitch, right? Objection overcome, back to the pitch. Now, how many times you loop is unfortunately is how uncomfortable the person gets, right? And how uncomfortable you get with the situation. And then again, I'm not saying to be a high pressure salesman here. You're just hitting them with logic.
Yeah.
So if they're like, well, like I don't really want to spend the money and blah, blah, but like, well, why don't you come in for a free discovery visit and we can chat a little bit about your more specific problem and talk to you about it. Well, I don't even know if I want to waste your time. You know what I mean? Well, here's the deal. Do you want to work with me or do you want to work with your insurance company? Like, what's your primary goal here? And it's like, well, I want to work with you. Be like, all right, well, come over for the free discovery visit. Let's talk about this together. Right. We'll go through that discovery visit and we can talk about another podcast about what the discovery visit should look like. And we'll put that in the school training, right? For one of our school trainings. So you can go through that detail. But what I would say is that discovery visit, then, right, what you're doing there is you're going to be like, this is going to take me 8 visits to fix. And now you've given them an actual number of how much this should cost.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to kind of look, because I think that's the meat of it, right? Of like, Well, finances, right? And then how do you overcome that? And using that line, do you want to work with me or do you want to work with your insurance company? Right.
Yep.
And whoever they cover. And that doesn't throw other PTs under the bus because we all know there's great PTs out in insurance world, right?
Mhm.
It also allows them to kind of say, okay, do I want the relationship or do I want the finances? Right. What's more important to me? And then offering that sort of, hey, I'll do a half hour. And I can tell you, cash pay PTs are very used to this kind of free visit thing. I use it for sponsorships. I'll give out a free visit when I sponsor a golf tournament. BNI members, my networking group gets 2 free visits. Every one of them gets 2 free visits so that they can experience what's going on and tell people, or some of them become paying customers, right? So these are strategies that have a reason that so many people are using them. And I think that the big difference there is, do you want to work with me or do you want to work with the insurance company? And that's where
Exactly.
the marketing and all the work that you do with marketing and building your brand and the word of mouth will make that answer a lot easier as you go.
And Owen said something about the free visit. Let me be specific about the free visit or the discovery visit. The discovery visit is not my hands-on treatment. It's not my exercise expertise. It's a subjective. So essentially,
Yeah.
all it is me asking and diving a little more on that first part and finding out more specifically about their problem. So if someone's got back pain and been like, again, these are great. This is great for slowing down the process when somebody's hemming and hawing, like, I'm not sure, I don't know. Again, the 4 major objections that every person will have: money, trust in the product and the time, right? The spouse, and will this actually work for me? Right. So
Mhm.
like again, it's a finite amount. It's not like it's something where, do you want to work with me? Yes, I really want to work with you. Like, you sound fantastic. You've been highly recommended. I really want to come work with you. All right,
There's
cool. Then
trust.
there's trust, right? And again, like, if you're an in-home PT, you're a mobile practice, like, the convenience you cannot beat. And so that's the thing
Mhm.
about cash PT in the car. Like, you can really leverage that, because I'm going to come to your house. It's going to be way easier for you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's that aspect of it. So that
Yeah.
objective overcome. Like, if someone's like, oh, it's just such a bear for me to get there. I have kids. I have this. Like, well, come right to your house. Oh, okay,
Mhm.
cool, right? So you can do that. And so again, think about, like, there's no difference really between insurance conversations and non-insurance conversations. The
Mhm.
conversation is more around the, do you want to come here, or do you want to do you want to, and what you can even say is, you can even make it even more blunt. I joke, it's like sales sometimes, this objection ever comes kind of like punching people in the face, right? It's like, hey, do you want to work with me, or do you want to go to the cheapest option for your insurance?
I love how we started this of
Right?
like, we're all PTs and we
Yeah,
want to help everybody, and sales can
totally.
be challenging, but you should do it. And then Brian kind of finishes near the end of,
Yeah.
so this is how you punch someone in the face.
Exactly. And the reality of it is like I also do a lot of stuff in fitness, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, I have people who are non-compliant. I have people who have done different stuff, right? And so, like, the reality is sometimes you gotta, like, punch them in the face. You gotta put it on them, right? Like, you gotta be like, listen, like, do you think the reason you haven't lost this weight is because you've never found an exercise routine consistency?
Yeah. And I mean,
And
it's
then,
it's it's true. We
yeah,
have to do that with patients.
yeah,
Like
right,
I had a lady the other day. She's like, "Well, I don't know, PT didn't work." I was like, "You called me once every 3 weeks. You canceled 2 times, and we had 4 visits over 2 months. Of course, it didn't work." Like,
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
it, and the yeah, you
And the
you
and
do
the
kind of have
way and
to.
the way you phrase that, like, for that,
Uh,
like, so I'm sure Owen didn't actually phrase it that way, but to your
yeah,
point, the way I would phrase that being like, I know that you're saying PT didn't work, right? But what happened was we set up a plan of care, and we didn't
yeah,
really follow that plan of care. Now, I know you had some stuff going on, you made a couple cancels and this and that. What do you think about us actually getting this done the right way this time? And that way, then we can go session by session and get it done right, right?
yeah.
And we can do that. And I can promise you that on this, if a person comes in for discovery visit, you should be able to close them there. And then again, you go
Uh,
through the subjective. If I then say, hey, we can get another thing about a discovery visit, but essentially, then most people, the vast majority of people, will opt for a pay in full option. So if I say, like, hey, it's going
yeah.
to take me 10 visits to get this thing fixed, and I'm going to charge $150 a visit, and that's $1,500. But I can give 10% off if you pay up front, because it's like a planetary discount. So basically, you basically get a free session.
Yeah.
And most people will pay that. Most people will do that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So again, some
And
people will say, I can't really pay. Well, all right, no problem. I'll put on a payment plan. You know what I mean?
yeah. And we can always get into, do you play for the plan of care, all the way down to per session. Those are, I mean, believe me, we've covered them in different podcasts. We'll cover them again. I think the
Yeah.
important thing to take away from this podcast for anyone that's listening is that a good salesperson believes in what they're selling more than anyone else, and using that mentality to then use more refined ways of having that conversation with somebody to get them to see the light, right? And
Yeah.
it's anybody who believes in themselves believes truly that they are the best option for someone. And using the tips that Brian went over on how to get different objections to be not objections anymore, how to pitch yourself in a way that is a helpful way for the patient and solve a problem. I think that these are all really good mentality shifters for people, either younger clinicians or even honestly PTs who've been doing this for a while. Maybe they have an insurance practice and they're like, oh my God, rates are going down.
Yeah.
I got to start selling some Hyperice boots, right? I got to start selling some dry needling. I got to start giving people some stretch sessions. All of these can be interchanged with all the things that you're trying to provide in your practices to help you grow.
At least, I mean, 50% of our business is still cash based, right?
Yeah.
So like cash based means cash based
That's
is
why I
meaning
think that's why I think you're a great person for this, because you grew
yeah.
from cash to insurance, but you didn't go full in everybody's insurance, no cash. Like you kept that sales
Yeah,
side and you've seen the benefits from it.
for sure. I mean, and anybody who can, again, the skills of sales never goes away. You need that in anything, right? There's a
Yeah.
old line by Grant Cardone that I love. He's like, if you're not selling, then you're being sold something. And so
Yeah.
the reality is, like, if someone's saying to you, I approach that in sales. If someone says, hey, you know what? I don't know if I can justify it, blah, 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 and all that stuff. Be like, again, that's where the punch in the face mentality comes from. They're trying to
Mhm.
sell you that, one, you're not that you're not worth it. They don't value you over the cheapness of the insurance. And I tell them, like, I'm not the cheapest by any means. I was like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, I know I can get you better. And I
Yeah.
don't tell them I can get you better the fastest. I know you can get better and you can stay better. And that's the
And your experience will be way better.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So
Cool.
that is a great place to end this. I know that we just started building out our first major sort of module toolkit, whatever. We are putting the finishing touches on our sales toolkit. So we haven't figured out a name for it. I'm sure we'll come up with something, nice and catchy. But basically, how to get somebody to know you're around, and how to get them to get from, oh, I know a PT to I'm paying that PT money. We have that on our mentorship program through the school website. It is in the description of this podcast, either on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And Brian and I are still running our Q&A sessions. $12 a month, you're able to get in and have your business talked about with us and other professionals, to bounce stuff off of people instead of just putting it in a Facebook group and hope like the one or two people respond.
Exactly. I mean, and obviously for this, for $12, me and Owen had a conversation that we put in. You can see it on the school. If you click on there, the about page, we had a conversation that's going to make thousands of dollars, right? So like, again, this podcast alone, if you use that framework, use that line, what would you rather use, your insurance, or would you rather work with me? That'll make a lot of people on this podcast money. So that's the whole core one. So $12 is really a drop in the hat for what the value we're providing here.
I love it. All right, man. As always, have a good one.
Cool. See you, man.
Bye.